Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is one of those books that I've only heard praises about but never actually got around to reading them. But during Halloween last year, some pop-up store was open around the area where I used to go sometime, and one of those stores was selling second-hand bookstore. I bought 3 books. It ends with us that I haven't touched yet. Trainspotting that I actually tried to start before reading this, but give up on trying to figure out how to read the Scottish English used to write most of it. And this book. I knew basically nothing about the book. I only knew that the book won the Nobel Prize for Literature before even seeing the tag on the cover, and I knew that there is a Netflix adaptation that is coming soon. The opening of the book itself is actually the opening of the trailer for the movie adaptation. How Colonel Aureliano Buendia remembered the past when his father took him to see ice for the first time as he faced the firing squad. At the beginning, Macando, the village where the story is set in, and also the place where Aureliano grew up, was only a small village with only 20 houses. It was such a recent word that many things like names. Usually, or annually I should say, every March a family of Romanis would come to the village and bring new things to the village, adding a new name they should remember. The man who would always show them new things is named Marquez. At first he brought magnet, calling it the eighth wonder of Macedonia, and then he made a display of demonstrating it, causing every metal objects like pen and pots to fall down and iron beams to creak in desperation, trying to hold to position. One of the villagers, Jose Arcadio Buendia, thought of an idea to use the magnet to find gold, which we know is not going to work, and Marquez also noticed and told him so, but Jose refused to believe the Roman's advice and bartered the magnet with a mule and a pair of goats. And this is even after his wife Ursula Igueren asked him not to sell the animals because she needs them. But he got the magnet anyway, and then he explored the riverbed near the village with the magnets looking for golds, which of course didn't work. He did find a set of old rusted armor containing a calcified skeleton with a locket that contained a woman's hair, which I'm not sure yet what this means. Maybe someone can tell me in the comment below. The next March, the Romani group returned bringing them with a telescope and a magnifying glass. Again, Marquez made a demonstration of the new things of how it can close the distance when looking through the telescope and how you can use the magnifying glass to set things on fire by concentrating the sun rays. Jose again have an idea, this time to use these things as weapon of war, which Marquez again tried to dissuade him against it and fails again. He broke the telescope and the magnifying glass with the magnet he no longer have any use of, and 3 colonial coins that are gifts from Ursula's father that she has kept hidden under the bed to one day maybe use it if she really needs them. Without consoling his wife, he immediately tried to experiment on creating solar warfare techniques, but it never really gets on. Then another year passed and March comes again, and Marquez and his group comes again. Marquez gave him back the coin in exchange for the magnifying glass, and he also gave Jose some Portuguese map, some instrument of navigation like the astrolabe, the compass, and the sextant, and a few studies by Monk Herman on how to use them. He got so into learning and studying how to use these tools that eventually he figured out that the earth is round, like an orange, something that of course Marquez who sold him those tools already knew about. The story honestly feels a bit like Aesop fables, those Greek short stories that are filled with moral lesson, like the story about the dog who looked at his own reflection while holding a meat. Then when the dog struck at his own reflection, wanting to also get the meat from the other dog, he let go of his own meat which falls into the water, losing everything as a result of his greed. It's a simple short story about greed, but it's a more intricate extension to that short story. There's even some magical reality that turns the story into something else. Years have passed since Marquez first visited Macondo, but somehow Jose is still as young as when they first met, while Marquez is much older now and has lost all his teeth. It's because Marquez has somehow contracted all the rare diseases from every country he visited. He survived pellagra in Persia, scurvy in Malayan archipelago, leprosy in Alexandria, beriberi in Japan, and even the bubonic plague in Madagascar among other things. But he gained a lot of knowledge from this journey that he now wants to pass to Jose and his family. He built him a laboratory for figuring out by himself that the earth is round, and with this lab he teaches him alchemy, the stuff of magic that can double the properties of gold and philosopher's stone that makes everything possible. Even Jose's kid Aureliano and his brother Arcadio was taken by his stories. Despite the gold experiment using alchemy only resulted in Ursula to lose more of her father's coin, I think because of all the events, Ursula is the only one who absolutely hate Marquez, enough to manage to turn the entire village against the visitors before the next march, where this time Marquez comes with a factor that gave him back his youthful look. Before Marquez came, Macondo was a happy and peaceful place, and Jose was a good neighbor who always helped out the community. But now it all changes, taking heavy inspiration from Eden with Adam, Eve, and the snake. But where Adam and Eve suck ass, in Macondo, Jose is the only one who is too self-absorbed with his fanciful dream of wanting more in life that he forgot that he had sons, two of them, making Ursula the only one who raised them and makes sure that her family and Macondo doesn't fall apart. But sons often follow their father's footsteps, especially after Ursula's gentle reminder to Jose that he had children, and he started teaching them about all the things he had learned from Marquez. The next March comes, and this time it's not just a family of Romani, it's a horde of them with many more new inventions the villager has never seen, including potions to forget and potions to turn yourself invisible. Jose, in his drunkenness of this new name of things, looked for Marquez among the crowd and learned that the guy was dead. But he had no time to grieve because his children pushed him to go to the main attraction from this visit. He paid to enter the main tent with his two children, where for the first time they saw it, a block of see-through stone that seems to contain the galaxy in it. The Romas introduced it as ice. The Biondia family acts with the people who founded the Macondo village. They come from another village. They were cousins that were not supposed to get married because an uncle of them had a deformed child who died trying to cut his pigtail at the age of 42. 2 years older than the 40 years old virgins and 2 years longer being a virgin. But Jose insisted that he don't mind having a deformed child, so they went and got married. Fearing of giving birth to a pigtailed child like their uncle, she was a chastity belt for the entire year of their marriage. But after a year, all the villagers knows about it somehow, and one day after winning a cockfight, Jose's opponent mocked him for his wife's virginity, and Jose killed him before threatening to kill Ursula unless she let him do it. Ever since then, the ghost of the man he killed haunts his house. To make peace with the ghost, he vowed to leave the village and went on a journey across the mountain, eventually reaching a spot where he cleared the trees there and built Macondo after a dream. The guilt of marrying her cousin and the murder is why Ursula and Jose kept their marriage during all his madness. The fear of having a deformed child comes back again to her as she got pregnant with a third child. Meanwhile, her first child, Arcadio, has grown much bigger than his age, and then got involved with an older woman from the village and kept it a secret that only Aureliano knows about. I think this is the first of many underage relations in this book. That is until the next March where the group of Romani return. Unlike Marquez, this group who bring ice last year only brought new things that seems amusing to them. There is no longer a sense of scientific wonder when they come, but it's still a good place to hang out, like a carnival. It is during this time that Pilar, the woman Arcadio has been seeing, told him that she was pregnant. Arcadio did not like the much older woman, and he also did not want to become a father to their child, so he walks around in the carnival and then he found a Roma girl that he really liked. They had sex on one of the tents, and when he woke up, he abandoned his clothing and took up the Romani outfit and left with the girl and her group. Ursula, learning that his older son is gone, left her family and Amaranta, the daughter she just gave birth to, in order to find Arcadio. She was missing for 6 months, and when she comes back, she wears clothing that are alien to Macondo and people from the next village that her husband was unable to find during his quest. The two villages eventually started trading with each other, with people busy moving from one place to another. Pilar gave birth to Arcadio's son, which they named after his father. Ursula eventually becomes a candy merchant, while Jose abandoned his laboratory to become the figurehead of the village again. It was during this moment that we started to see the story from Aureliano's perspective. With Jose abandoning the laboratory, Aureliano gets to be there by himself doing his own experiments. He also has an uncanny ability that sometimes can make a prediction about the future, and he foresaw that someone is coming. That someone is Rebecca, an 11 years old distant family member of Jose. They decided to adopt her to the family, where she took their last name, Buendia. At first she was rebellious, but with Ursula's help, she soon grew out of her rebellious phase and became the older sister of Amaranta and Arcadio. But she brings with her the plague that the Indian from the other village has been avoiding, the insomnia plague, where at first people don't fall asleep and still feel energetic, but the sickness will continue with loss of memory and with it their ability to do anything. The whole house soon caught the sickness, and because Ursula has been selling the candy she made, soon the whole village caught the sickness. When they started forgetting things, it was Aureliano who started writing the name of things, a theme that we've known from the start. but it took a different meaning this time because of the insidious nature of forgetting. Jose took to writing the name of things to the whole house and to the entire village: door, chair, hammer, chicken, cow, even manual on how to get milk from said cow. But eventually even letters was forgotten, and soon everyone was stuck on a state of forgetting. It was during this time that a man came to the village and went directly to Jose's house and gave him a potion that made him remember everything he has lost. It was Marquez that has returned from the land of the dead. He saved the village, and Ursula offered for him to stay on their house despite her previous grudges. Time passed, and eventually the children of the Buendia household grew up. Aureliano had the chance to finally bed a woman. She was a prostitute who had been serving 63 men before he came in. She was sold by her grandmother because she accidentally burned their house after forgetting to turn off a candle. Aurelian didn't do anything, and he felt so much pity for the girl after he comes back home that he decided he will marry her, saving her from the life her grandmother forced her in. But when he comes back, she has left, and he vowed that he'll never touch a woman in his life again for this failure. Meanwhile, Ursula, realizing that not only Aureliano has become an adult, Rebecca, Amaranta, and Arcadio Jr. was also no longer babies. So she decided to use the money that she has saved from her candy enterprise to extend the family house. It was during the renovation of the house that a magistrate that has been appointed by the government came to the village, Don Apollonar Mascote. Jose, who have been the head of the village since its creation, of course don't agree with this decision, especially when the Don randomly decided that everyone shall paint their house blue upon his arrival. Jose almost kicked him out of the village despite him coming from the government, but because Don arrived with his wife and two daughters, Jose decided to let him and his family stay as long as there is no soldier coming to the town and everyone can paint their house whatever color they want. The Buendia family new house is finally finished, and for the finishing touch, she ordered a pianola, a self-playing piano for the house. An Italian expert, Pietro Crespi, even comes to deliver and assemble the pianola, and with his arrival, the book took a turn into a little bit of soap opera. Aureliano becomes infatuated with the younger daughter of his father's enemy, Remedios, while both Rebecca and Amaranta fell in love with Pietro. It was a very Greek era storytelling that I don't really like usually, especially when Amaranta started threatening to kill the sister she grew up with when Rebecca was promised to marry Pietro. Aureliano also convinced his family and the magistrate family that he'll be married to Remedios, who has yet to reach puberty. I hope those firing squad at the start of the story don't miss. And during this time, Macondo also finally had their first ever death and their first ever burial cemetery. Marquez, the Roma who started the change in Macondo, has grown so old that finally death took him again. Not long after that, because Pilar's card reading, two others was buried near Marquez. The bones of Rebecca's parent that she bring with her when she first arrived that has been forgotten in the house. Jose has also started to get back into alchemy again once he's bored with taking pictures with photography, trying to find evidence of God. He was about to try to find how to make a perpetual pendulum that will generate infinite energy when he started seeing the ghost Prudencio Aguilar, the man that he killed in the previous village. It didn't take long for him to start rambling about Mondays every day before he finally went mad with rage and started destroying all his equipment at the house and stopped speaking in Spanish. It took 10 of the villagers to stop him from destroying things, and they decided to tie him in the chestnut tree that is planted in the past. They decided to put some roof on top of the tree and let him stay there until they figure out what's happening to him. He was still tied there when Aureliano and Rebecca had their engagement officiated. Moscote invited Father Nicanor to officiate the wedding, and the father comes also trying to build a church in Macondo while he's there, asking for alms and donation so he can finish the construction of the church. While asking for donation, he used floating by chocolate to convince people to donate, where he drinks chocolate then started floating on the chair. He was near Jose when he started floating with the chair, and Jose made a comment about the father having found the fourth state of matter in Latin. The father replied to him also in Latin, and that's how they knew that Jose wasn't speaking in gibberish. He is speaking in Latin. The father at first tried to comfort him, but he failed, and his faith is the one that was disturbed instead, because Jose used M14 and T60 and it was super effective. So he stopped visiting the man who was tied to the tree and focused more on constructing the church. Here, Amaranta made a lot of plans to try to cancel the wedding of Rebecca and Pietro, which eventually led to planning to use poison. But during Remedios' pregnancy, as a child, the pregnancy killed Remedios, which caused Amaranta to second guess the poison plan. Amaranta eventually had the chance to get Pietro because Jose Arcadio, the son that was gone with the Romani, has returned as a giant among men, and he decided to marry his adopted sister Rebecca. So Amaranta and Pietro was engaged. But within this soap opera drama of affairs, war is brewing. The people wanted more autonomy than the current conservatives are willing to give, but currently nothing can be done about that since the current system are placed in order for conservatives to hold on to their seat of power. So the liberals planned the assassination of Don Quixote, Aureliano's father-in-law. Aureliano tried to resist going into the war against his own family, but once the military comes in and started killing blindly, he had to join the ranks of the town, spearheading the war against Quixote. He used guerrilla tactics, took their weapon and imprisoned Quixote, and started to call himself Colonel Aureliano Buendia. He tried his best until old age to liberate Macondo from the government, but he had to hide from the military to avoid capture, and his successor, Arcadio Jr., became a totalitarian who punished any of his citizens that doesn't obey him harshly. His ruling got so bad that Ursula had to step in to punish the man-child and become the unwilling leader of the city for a while. Also during the war, Pietro killed himself because Amaranta for some reason refused to marry him. This is when threatening to kill yourself for love was considered romantic for reasons we may never know. And Ursula buried his body in the family cemetery. Arcadio Jr. also eventually get captured and executed with his last moment thinking about the family that he took for granted. And it didn't take long for Aureliano to also be captured. We go back to the start of the book where he was about to be executed. But when Jose Arcadio, who was staying near his execution spot, tried to help, Aureliano executioner joined him instead and helped bring the resistance back into power. And for the first time, the resistance grew strong enough for Aureliano to go back home to the Buendia house in Macondo for at least a moment. But despite this good news, tragedy still somehow followed the family. Jose Arcadio died mysteriously and Rebecca would stay at their house until the end to mourn him. Meanwhile, Colonel Garinaldo Marquez, the person who was supposed to execute Aureliano and become his follower, has become closer to the family and has been pursuing Amaranta for her love. Just like with Pietro though, Amaranta kept refusing him. She instead went on some very weird relationship with the son of Aureliano, Jose Aureliano. This is like what, the third incest and the fourth underage thing going on? A family that kept repeating their mistakes generation after generation. Because of this, after Jose Aureliano went to war, he comes back determined to marry his own aunt. It thankfully didn't happen because Jose Aureliano will eventually die on the street shot by a political opponent. The war has turned Macondo into a far more violent place compared to when we first saw it during the time it was just Ursula and Jose. But now Jose has died from old age and Aureliano has turned into a savage, taking Rebecca's house for his own asset and killed his own friend Jose Raquel Macondo despite the protest of everyone in the city and his own mother. Any goodwill that started the war has gone. Conservative and liberal means nothing in the ongoing war because liberal has slowly turned into conservatives while conservative standard for human life slowly degrades to hell. If there's anyone good in the war, they have died or changed to be as horrible as the worst of their opponents. Garinaldo Marquez is the first one to solve this emptiness of war, saw the change in Aureliano for turning his eyes blind to this change as he spent his days being drunk in power. Garinaldo put his life on the line warning Aureliano of his turn into a tyrant, and with Ursula's help, Aureliano finally fought a war that is not based on abstract ideal and political slogan, and the two opposing parties of war finally agreed for the truce. It took a while and lots of people died with almost nothing accomplished, but peace finally returned to the house enough so the story can focus on Jose Arcadio II and Aureliano II and the beautiful Remedios II. Many things happened during their time, but the worst of it had to be Aureliano II chance meeting with Fernanda del Carpio, a woman who was unfortunately raised to be vain, narcissistic, and arrogant beyond belief, who he decided to marry despite already having a concubine, changing most of what's left of the Buendia household that Ursula has been trying to preserve even more. 17 of Aureliano's sons that he had during the war also visited at one point with only Aureliano Triste who decided to stay, but not for long, because now Macondo had a train running through its land. And with the train came more change to Macondo civilization, and then the gringos started pouring out of the train. They're white, pale, and they created a banana company in the area, a company that had a police force on their own. Armed by the conservative and the gringos, they are ruthless in attacking those that goes against the company, eventually killing all 17 of the Aurelianos except for the oldest, Aureliano Amador, who escaped at least until the end of the story. The event only fueled Colonel Aureliano's rage that he had been keeping intact for some time because he cannot love or grieve over others. He managed to secure funds to restart the war, but no one wanted to go back to the war that has been proven to be fruitless, especially when this war will be just for his own sake. Because of this, he grew to be more solitary, making golden fishes in the workshop until the colonel eventually died one day while leaning against the family chestnut tree that hosted his father to the day he died. Again, something that feels like generations that are trapped to live and to die in a similar way. And with his death, we move on to the story of Renta Remedios, daughter of Aureliano II and Fernanda. Raised by a strict mother and a father who would rather spend time with his concubine rather than his wife, Remedios or Mim was a closeted free spirit who would rather go out and drink. But at home she hides everything and acts like the obedient and disciplined daughter. The house has also lost Remedios the beauty because she one day just floated into the distance while Amaranta dies of old age. But loss is not the only thing that happens. Fernanda eventually also carried a second daughter she named Amaranta Ursula despite Ursula's protest. While Amaranta Ursula grew to be a troublemaker for a while, Meme thankfully outgrew her drinking phase and turned into education, maturing more than the rest of the family ever was in the process. That is until she met a mechanic of the banana company named Mauricio Babilonia and have a child with him out of marriage before he himself died because he was shot after getting mistaken as a chicken thief. The boy who inherited Aureliano's name shamed Fernanda so much that she told everyone at the Buendia household that she found the child floating in a river. During this moment, Jose Arcadio II, who had been silent for the most part, started a union on the banana company. At first, he managed to win them one day of holiday on Sunday, but so much is wrong with that company. They don't even have toilets on the company for sanitary purposes despite being a food company, and they are paid only on script that can only be used to buy some overpriced ham at the company. When they went on a strike, the company decided to put everyone on a train and shoot all of them with a new weapon called the machine gun, killing all 3,000 workers, men and women. Jose Arcadio II only survived through some miracles where the banana army cannot see him while he's hiding in Marquez's workshop. Then during the last leg of the story, famine hit Macondo that it even hit the Buendia family who have always been the wealthiest family in Macondo quite hard. Aurelian II even had to rely on raffling animals with the help of his concubine Petracota. Ursula, who had lived to more than 100 years, died during this time, and her death are followed soon by the death of Rebecca, Aureliano II, and Jose Arcadio II. Then the story eventually ends with the last Aureliano forcing himself to Amaranta Ursula, which resulted in Amaranta Ursula's death after giving birth to a baby with a pigtail, something that Ursula has warned her family her whole life while she's still alive, closing the cycle of the story. It's honestly such an amazing book. It's not the cleanest writing in the world. Some parts are too long and some parts can be a bit repetitive because there are so many characters, and occasionally events are retold through a different character perspective, making the story even longer. But it adds to make the story that feels endless in a good way, if that makes sense. Time in the story feels like it moves differently across the story. Ursula feels like she had lived through thousands of years compared to the mere 122 she lives for. Then the combination of political drama, coming of age, magical realism all combined into such a powerhouse of symbolism. Almost everything that is written in the book have different kind of meaning, like how every characters are haunted either literally or figuratively by the ghost of their past. There's a cycle to the story of how history feels like it repeats itself in different but similar ways, and not just the characters. Even Macondo itself started to repeat itself at the end when all the citizens has lost everything due to famine, getting out all over again when a Romani group comes back bringing magnets like the start of the story. So much of the story is about people losing their mind. Sometimes it is through mental illness, like how Jose started to speak only in Latin, the autism of Remedios the Beauty, Ursula dementia in her old age, but more often it's people losing their mind because of ego and obsession. Jose wanting to be known as an inventor, Aureliano wanted to become a hero, Aureliano II falls into greed, Amaranta abandoning family for love. Even the incest and underage relation are from a form of twisted obsession. Then there's the name of the characters and how much it repeats itself in the story, which seems to indicate how selfish the characters are. That's why some of the most selfless characters who embodied hospitality usually appears the least throughout the history of Macondo. Everything about the book is cloaked in this kind of symbolism. It's a story that you can read 100 times and find something new each time you read it. It's so good. I'm giving this a 4.75. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.